Welcome to the AngelsWin.com podcast, featuring Jeff Stoddard and AngelsWin.com founder, Chuck Richter. And now, here's Jeff Stoddard.
Welcome, everyone, to the episode 49 of the Angels Win podcast. Everything just going smooth as silk right out of the gate. Love it. Chuck, how you doing? Welcome. Cheers to you. We've got a guest today. Would you like to introduce him to everyone?
Yeah, we got Trent Rush, Angels broadcaster and host, and Fox Sports for play-by-play for basketball and football. Trent, welcome.
It's great to be hanging with you guys. Last time we did this, there were no cameras or mics, and we were just chilling, hanging out at the bar on a rainy day in Tempe. But I'm glad that we get to spend a little time together in this format. Thank you.
It was good. Yeah, and giving us a tour of kind of the bowels of Tempe Diablo. That was really sweet. Going down there and seeing the old clubhouse.
That was great.
That was fun. That was a lot of fun. Thank you for doing that for us.
Yeah, I'll just say that, like, for me, like, we don't ever go down there anymore. So there's a lot of old memories that come back hanging out. And man, I tell you what, the new facility is spectacular. I know a lot of people have talked about it, but there is still like this little nostalgic charm. It's not nearly as nice as what they have now, but it is kind of fun to go back and see what it used to be like.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was cool to kind of see like where Trout had his locker, where you pointed that out, and Pujols right next to him, and then Ohtani on the other side, and just some of the Angels greats that have been in that locker during Tempe Diablo games. So that was really cool.
Yeah,
I'm glad you guys had a good time. It was fun. It was fun getting together.
It was good. Well, I guess you're probably back in Southern California now, or was it? What is it like when you're in Arizona for month, 2 months ish, and then you're kind of getting into the feel of things, and then you leave Tempe Diablo in your rear view mirror to get things started. Is that exciting, or is there a little bit of melancholy to leaving a cool place where you're I don't know. I just love.
Well,
I love the spring training Cactus League stuff in March.
I do too. The one thing that I will say is that we're there such a long time that it's like we're ready to come home. So I think
its charm.
Felt that. Yeah, so I was happy to come home. Trust me, I love Tempe. I love being in Arizona. And they teased us. I think the best weather day of the entire spring was the day of the very last game on that Friday. So it was like, man, like this is immaculate. You don't want to leave this. But, for me, I was doing a lot of back and forths early on. And I, you mentioned, the college basketball work that I do. So I was trying to figure out college basketball games and my responsibilities in Anaheim and responsibilities in Tempe. And it was kind of nice the last maybe 10 days or so. I got to be like, all right, I'm settled in. This is where I'm at. I'm not moving. So I could stop living out of a suitcase for a little bit. And that was kind of nice. Yeah.
Nice.
Nice.
Trent, let me ask you, just to let the fans know a little bit about yourself. I mean, when did you become part of the Angels organization, and walk us through like what that looked like and how that became?
Well, I mean, I got started March 2015, and ironic. I'm wrapping up school at Chapman, and getting started here is just a part-time updates anchor doing the sports updates, which like 10 years later, I'm still doing those sports updates every morning. So I've been blessed to pick up additional opportunities, but I've never left what I did when I first started coming out of college. And so I did that. Now, I had interesting timing when I got started. My very first week on the job, might even be my first day of like actually working, of like, oh, hey, okay, you're our like updates news reporter now, was the day all the Josh Hamilton stuff went down. So that was like so I remember calling our mutual friend Tim Mead, and I said, Mr. Mead, you don't know who I am. I'm new here, but I could really use your help right now. And that was kind of how we figured out how to go about that kind of stuff. And there was nobody better. And for, a situation like that to kind of understand it all, as a 22-year-old, it was a unique thing. Actually, I might have even been 21 at the time. So 21 years old, I'm like, all right, how do I handle kind of a touchy subject here? But, alas, here we are. And I've been here now going into my 11th season.
Wow.
That's wild. That's wild. What got you interested in wanting to get into sports broadcasting? Like, how did that, is that something you kind of always knew that you wanted to do? Or was it something that you just kind of fell into?
Well, Jeff, it starts with me being just a horrible football player. I mean, that was really where the kind of the genesis of all of this is. I didn't play baseball past Little League. I'm 6 foot now, which is the same height I was in 6th and 7th grade, which was awesome then. You don't see a lot of 6'4" men get to play college basketball, so or even high school basketball. So those days evaded me, and then I tried playing football, and my claim to fame is I'm the only linebacker in history that couldn't tackle. So I knew that if I was going to be involved in sports, I love sports. I love looking at it from a coach's perspective. I considered coaching. I did some coaching, but for me, broadcasting seemed to be that path. I was interested in that. I could even go back. I could take you further. I remember being like 5 and 6 years old at my Aunt Bonnie's house and my great grandma Graham's, and we would they gave me a karaoke machine, and it wasn't to sing karaoke. I would walk around like I was Regis Philbin hosting a talk show, and that was what I did at like 5 and 6 years old. So
Wow.
I think it was always kind of in me, and it just worked out that I knew what I wanted to do at a young age.
Wow. So let me ask you, I mean, did you have any inspirations or like role models in the industry growing up that you kind of looked up to and tried to?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I living in Southern California. I mean, I was born early '90s, and living here, we got to watch. For baseball, it was I grew up with Rory Marcus and Rory and Terry was kind of I love that. So Rory was kind of my baseball guy, and I always had great admiration for Vin. I wasn't a Dodgers fan. I grew up in Orange County. I was always an Angels guy, but I would watch Dodgers games because I loved watching Vin and listening to
Right.
Vin. So I did that, and it just kind of gave me an affinity for baseball. Anyone that's heard me and a lot of our people watching this know my style and Vin Scully's style couldn't be more different, but I still respect so much about him. I think he's the greatest to ever do it. And I loved listening to Rory. Rory was kind of my guy for baseball. Dick Enberg, too. I really was a big Dick Enberg.
Oh, yeah.
So those three kind of helped formulate who I was baseball-wise. But probably the biggest influence for me on basketball was Chick Hearn. And I mean, I was a Lakers fan,
Oh,
and I listened to Chick all the time to the point where, the Lakers would, when they won that three-peat in the early 2000s, it was you turn off the sound on the national broadcast to listen to Chick on the radio. I remember doing that in my house, and that was how important, the call was for me to listen to Chick. So we had that, and then, obviously, on the football side, there wasn't like one in particular, but just watching all the national announcers, I think Nance is really good, and I think Joe Buck's really good. Those guys have kind of always been influences from afar. Nance was the one big national guy I got to meet when I was in college. That had a big impression on me. But that was, I always kind of looked up to, that local announcer was always a big deal for me. It was Rory and Chick Hearn, probably more than anybody else, had the biggest influence on me.
Yeah. What a great duo to have as kind of inspirations or having the privilege of living in an area in the LA Metroplex that you get to listen to just truly the cream of the crop of some announcers.
Chick basketball wise, the best ever. I think Rory is criminally underrated.
For sure.
Sadly, he left us too soon to go down as one of the all-time greats.
Yeah.
In my mind, he was going to be that. Rory, if he continued and he would have been one of the best. He would have been regarded as one of the best ever. Unfortunately, we all remember him. We know that, but the rest of the world probably doesn't have the same appreciation.
Sure. So as you're growing in your career and you come to work for the Angels, and I know you watching a lot of the spring training games and listening to you do those, how do you approach doing TV versus radio versus pregame and postgame? Like what is your process for getting ready and then executing on each of those kind of assignments that you're given?
Yeah, and they're all very different. And I would love to, maybe at some point in my life, I'll be like, okay, I'm a play-by-play guy. This is what I do. Or I'm a studio host. This is what I do. But then again, like, I know me, I like doing all the different things. I mean, that's kind of, that's what I enjoy doing is kind of, testing out those different skills in different areas. I got started. The first thing I really did in media was doing play-by-play. I got started at the very infancy before ESPN Plus. There was ESPN3. I was doing college basketball games for the Big West. I did radio for Long Beach State baseball, doing play-by-play. So I've been around. I've called a lot of games, a lot of different places. I did TV down in San Diego. So I've always kind of been a play-by-play guy, and I didn't have a whole lot of radio experience. Quite honestly, I have way more experience on the TV side than I do on the radio side. At least I did before this job, and now, I've been in radio for 10 years, so now I feel like, okay, we're probably pretty balanced in that regard. How I approach it is I try to, no matter what I'm doing, be able to tell the story of whether it be the game, whether it be the player, whether it be the synopsis of the season, and put things into context. That's the biggest thing for me, and especially in these spring training games. Now, don't get me wrong. When I find a great story, I can't wait to share it with our fans. But I think it's also important, like, seventh, eighth innings of these games in spring training, sometimes you don't know a whole lot about the guys on the field. And I might have a little bit of background on one or two of them, or honestly more than that, but I don't know that you want to hear me give like the same background every single game. I like to, okay, let's put this into the context of this game, which is in the context of the spring, which is in the context of what the Angels 2025 seasons can be and the direction that we're going in. So I try to keep all of that in mind. And that's not that different when I do a pregame show versus play-by-play. I think it's all part of the equation. The other part of your question, Jeff, the biggest difference between radio and TV. On radio, and I love both for different reasons. On radio, you are the driver. In it, you are telling the story you want to tell, and the analyst is able to provide anecdotes. But as a play-by-play guy, you are driving that ship on radio.
Right.
In television, the play-by-play guy is the traffic cop. Yes, you give, you able to provide more and make the big moments bigger, but really it's setting up your analyst, it's setting up your sideline reporter, it's telling the story that the producer works with you and wants to tell. So there's way more of a team environment. And I grew up an athlete, a bad athlete, but I was on teams. And I really love the team aspect that comes with television. Radio is a lot more individual. And then on TV, you really work together. And for me, I can't tell you guys how many times I sit down, I put the headset on, I'm like, all right, let's just not screw this up. We have a great truck. We have like the best production people in the world. I want to do right by them. And that's my mentality when I approach a TV broadcast sometimes.
Nice. What are the Angels' plans for you this season, Trent? Just kind of the same thing what you've been doing. Anything new? What's cooking?
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's going to be a lot of the same. I'm doing I'll fill in for Terry on radio from time to time. I'm doing, the pre and post game shows that I've been doing. I'm with Roger Lodge in the afternoons. So on the radio, a lot of that's the same. I don't know what the TV side is going to look like. I may end up doing, I did a little bit of pre and post for TV last year. I might do a little bit of that again this year. We'll see. I like maybe a lot of people in their job, especially when they're young and they're trying to, cut their teeth in this, you try to show your employer that you can provide value by having a lot of different skills and being able to do a lot of different things. So I like being a utility guy. That's my role for the Angels. I try to be the broadcaster super you guy. And however the Angels want to use me, I'm game. I'm happy to do it.
When you fill in for Terry on radio, is that a lot like like the team itself, where there's like load management days that are planned in advance, right? So you know what games you're covering, or is it more he's having a sore throat today, or he's under the weather, or something like that? And Trent, we need you in.
Okay, well, let me just first say this. Terry Smith does not need load management. I don't know how the guy does it. I don't know. His voice never goes down. He stays strong. He is as consistent as they get. Terry could do all. I mean, and including spring training, it ends up being like over 190 games by the time you do it all. So, I mean, Terry could do it all. There are some things, and to Terry's credit, he's a great family man. He's a great husband and a father. And there are occasionally family things that come up over the course of the season that he wants to make sure he's at. And I step into those. And, unfortunately, in years past, there have been, some health stuff from time to time. It's been minor, and that was several years ago. But I mean, Terry could do it all, but he likes to. He's going to have a couple of days this year taking care of really important stuff on the family side, which I'm super happy for him. And then, I'm fortunate to be able to fill in for him on those occasions.
That's great.
Nice. Yeah. Give us kind of your favorite stories in terms of things that you've covered behind the scenes and then on air, and things that you can recall that just make you chuckle from time to time, just recanting those things.
Well, I'll think of a couple. One of them was like a cool thing that I remember being a part of. This was the first time I remember it sinking in, like, man, I'm a part of history today. And that was when Albert hit his 600th home run. Now he ended up hitting 700, so it makes 600 a little less meaningful, but still that was a big deal to be in that rarefied air with Albert that day. And if you recall, that was the beginning of the homestand. He was at, I can't remember if it was 598 or 599, but he needed like one home run and we had like a week homestand. And I don't know if he was pressing, he just wasn't hitting them, and it wasn't happening. And now we get into Friday, and I think he had an offer on the Friday, and I'm going, oh man. And you don't want 600 to be on the road. Like, you got to get it done at home. And then I remember the Sunday being a day game and thinking, okay, Albert's probably not going to play in the day game on Sunday. So that Saturday kind of had to be the day. And there was so much national media, so much attention, so many people were a part of that I remember, like, okay, if we're going to get the interview with Albert, I know we're the flagship station for the Angels, and Artie Moreno owns a radio station, but still, when you're the radio station, you're competing with the TV broadcast, you're competing with ESPN, you're competing with MLB Network, all these different things that Albert has to do at the end of the game, but you got to get that interview. And I remember Albert had done all that, and Terry and Mark stayed on the air for a little bit, and it was like, okay, you're going to be fourth. And I'm like, gosh, the fourth interview? I mean, how are we going to get – he's going to walk right by me. He's already been out there for 20 minutes. He's going to walk right past me. And God bless Tim Meade. He had me positioned in the dugout right by the stairwell to walk down to where he had no choice. He had to stop by me. And after he hit a 600th home run, we got the interview with Albert live on the air. That was pretty cool. That was in 2018, and I was still pretty new at that role, so that was a pretty exciting thing for me. There were other things that occurred to me. Like, I went to an event, the old ESPN Zone, with Mike Trout, and I remember I was with Tim again, and I was with Mark Langston. We're riding in the car, and we're walking, and we go to meet Mike, and all of a sudden, Mike pulls up, and then there's like this Disney's security cohort that all of a sudden, like, you're part of this entourage, and you're in this mall, and I'm walking through, and they go, okay, go into this door, and I got Disney passes. I've been going to Disneyland since I was a little kid. I take my 3-year-old there. I'm seeing parts of this park. I didn't know this existed. I'm doing back tunnels and all this stuff. Next thing you know, the announcer goes, and ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mike Trout. And like, in stride, like, we didn't even take a step off. Now I'm on stage with Mike, and I'm like, I should not be here right now. So I'm doing my best to kind of hide and shimmy my way out to get out of the way. So that was just kind of, there's cool things that happen doing this job, being around greatness. And that's part of this organization that, I know we'd all love to win more games, and I hope that time comes soon. I hope it starts this season. But there are some great things and people and historical elements of this organization that are kind of cool just to be on the fringe of.
Absolutely. Well, that's a good segue. Let's shift into the season. So, coming out of spring training, who are the guys, the players that the other players or coaches or front office are most chattering about that really made the biggest impression, both at the major league level and maybe some minor league players that fans need to kind of keep an eye on, that we may be seeing, this year or in years to come?
Well, so I'll start on the major league side. When you bring in veterans like the Angels brought in, I don't know that the organization was that surprised. I think you know what Jorge Soler is going to do. I think you know what Yusei Kikuchi is going to bring. I think you know what Kyle Hendricks is going to bring. Those guys kind of are who they are. Now, I was really impressed by Kyle Hendricks and the leadership. I was impressed by the athleticism of Jorge Soler. I think that Jorge Soler can be someone that in the outfield can be even bigger of a presence than maybe what we've seen. I think he's looked pretty good defensively. And then you go on and on about, they bring in the veterans. And I think you trust that. Now, some surprises. Zach Neto as a leader. I'll be frank. He comes up with Logan O'Hoppe. Logan is the guy. He's the leader. Logan O'Hoppe is so polished. It's ridiculous how polished he is at 24 years old. And Zach is the guy eating Takis and kind of screwing around. And he's like the little brother. He's like the little kid. The leadership step that Zach Neto has made from last year to this year, that's a big deal. And you're seeing it in the rehab right now. So I think we all know Zach Neto's a pretty good player. You look at the numbers last year, I think the baseball world knows Zach Neto's going to be pretty good. I think Neto's going to be a better leader and clubhouse figure than I really realized. He was a baby when he came up. So that was kind of startling to me in a good way about where this team is at and for Neto to take on that role. But I think the veterans, I think you kind of know what this team can do based on their previous production. Where I get excited is watching our young guys. And I know every team loves their young guys. And I also know what the publications say about where the Angels are in the farm system. But I'm around these guys. I've been around a lot of Angel teams over the last 10 years, and I've seen a lot of players on the farm system. This farm has more talent and more depth than I can ever recall seeing. And I don't know if it's, that takes them from 30th to 29th. I don't know. But there are good young players here. We saw Lugo. Both Lugos. Matthew Lugo had a great camp. Joshua Lugo has a chance to be a star at 18 years old. Walbert Urania looked incredible when we saw him. There are some really talented young players in the organization that I think are much further along than maybe what is portrayed nationally.
Yeah, and then you didn't even mention Christian Moore and George Clausen and
Clausen,
Gary.
Yeah. Clausen and Gary. I mean, we can talk about Christian Moore I think everyone knows Christian Moore, and he's super talented with the bat.
Yeah.
He has work to do defensively. We're going to see Christian Moore, I think, at some point in 2025.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be right away, and I think he's going to help this team. The bat tool is ready to go, but he's even talked about the adjustment from college level to AA, and then seeing big league pitching. He just needs time. I think that the Angels are in a situation now that they've brought in enough veteran depth that when Christian Moore gets the call, it's because Christian Moore is ready, not because the Angels need him to be ready. And I think that's probably a difference from the last few years.
What about Nelson Rada? He's another name that a lot of folks are talking about, that he bulked up a little bit this offseason. Did you notice that difference in person? Or, sometimes it's the way you catch a photo angle where you could look a little bigger or skinnier or whatever, depending on. But everybody focused on his arms, and how he put on some good bulk weight. I mean,
he looks strong. He looks strong. He looks good. I think Nelson Rada, recency bias. Matthew Lugo played great this spring, but I think Nelson Rada is probably the best defensive outfielder in the organization. I think Nelson. I mean, at 19 years old, it's like wow.
Yeah.
I don't know that we're ever going to talk about Nelson Rada being a perennial all-star, but I think we are talking about a player that can be really important for the organization, that can be a regular in the major leagues and contribute at a high level. I think he can be that, especially defensively. He's got to hit. I mean, let's face it, but he's 19. Sure. I mean, I think we can give him a little bit of time. Like how I kind of see the Angels right now is you have this major league roster that has a really talented young core. I've called them the 25U crew on the air of good young players, Ohapi and Neto and Shawnuel. I think you put Joe Adell in that mix. Soriano just graduated. You have that young core. How can you support that young core? Okay, the Angels went out and they brought in a bunch of veterans. Now, that young group, that's going to be the group that leads this team to a championship. I really believe that. That's the group. Do they have enough outside firepower to help them get there? Maybe. I don't know that this year necessarily is that, but I do think that we are seeing an organization build around that young group. And when that group's in their prime, I think they can be pretty good. But there's a couple of waves here. There's the next wave of the Matthew Lugo, the Nelson Rada, the Gary, the Clausen group. That group is going to come in, and I think they're going to be really good to support that. And then when that 25U crew becomes the 32U crew, and then you have, the Walbert Uranias and the Joshua Lugos, and now that crop is coming up. Now we're talking about homegrown talent that is real, that is there, that can contribute at the major league level, and you have something that could be what we saw this Angels organization have in the 2000s. I think that's the direction. Are we going to necessarily see that overnight tomorrow? No, it's going to take a little bit of time, but I think that's the direction where things are headed.
So this may not be the season where the Angels are battling for a World Series championship.
You never know, Jeff. Come on.
I said May.
The season hasn't started. You never know.
I said May. We're not giving up. Hope springs eternal. It is spring. It may not be the season that happens. But they made some solid additions in the offseason. They got Soler, Jensen, Kikuchi. Is what they added, coupled with the maturing of Netos and the Ohapis and the different guys that we have coming up, is it enough for fans to realistically expect that this team will be competitive in the AL West, where they're battling with Texas and Houston and Seattle for kind of those top 2 or 3 spots versus battling with, I even call them Oakland? Is it Sacramento now?
I'm sorry.
Battling with the Sacramento A's for last place like they have been. Like what is a realistic expectation that you see, and what did you hear the team and players what are they expecting from themselves this year?
Well, I think there's a little bit of a difference I'm not truly third party, but I'm not in the clubhouse. I'm not on the roster. So if you ask any player, they expect to win a championship. All 30 teams, every guy, they're competing for a championship. So I'm going to take a little bit of a step back and answer this question. I think so. When I look at it, knowing what I know about the game, I watch the Texas Rangers and look at that lineup and go, dang, that is a really good lineup. I look at the pitching Seattle has. Dang, that is really good pitching. Everyone's high on the A's. I think they're high on the A's just because they're better than what they were. I don't think they're great, and I think Houston's worse than what they were. I said early that I think that I don't see a team winning more than 86 or 87 games in this division, and I don't see a team losing or having fewer than 75 losses in this division. I think it's going to be kind of bunched up, and that's how I see things with the AL West. Having looked at what I saw in spring training, maybe Texas can be better than that. If there's a team that can jump out, if they're pitching and stay healthy, which already it hasn't, but if they're pitching and stay healthy, Texas is the clear-cut leader for me in the American League West. I think the most important thing is seeing the development of that 25U crew and having these veteran players support that. Like, you need them to produce. You need Travis d'Arnaud to produce, and Soler and Kikuchi and Hendricks and Kenley Jansen. Like, yes, you need their production, but I think the most important thing is having those pieces be able to help the group that's, I think, truly going to take the Angels into eventually being a perennial contender. So could the Angels shock the world? I mean, we'll see. I think they're probably a little better than a lot of people are saying. I think there are also things that have to be addressed. Like, I look at center field and Joe Adell, who shows the power, and could Joe Adell be a 30-30 guy? Like, yes, I think so, but he can't hit 207 again. Like you hit 230, hit 230 and be a 30-30 guy, and that makes a world of difference. Mike has to stay healthy. That's the biggest thing, but he also has to produce. Like, he hit the 10 home runs last April, but he drove in 14. We need Mike to come up with guys in scoring position and be able to get hits. And I think it's going to be better for him now having the protection of Soler in the lineup. But there's areas where the Angels need to improve for sure. I think that it would be disingenuous for me to talk about the Angels in the same group as Texas or even Seattle right now. But I do think that if the group can mature the way I hope they can, we are going to be talking about a team that's going to be playing meaningful baseball in August and September, and we haven't had that in a while.
Speaking of Mike Trout, how has he looked in right field in your eyes? Seeing him every day, and what are the coaches and stuff saying about how he's looked there, and what's a realistic expectation of Trout? I mean, to your point, can he play? I mean, I doubt he's going to play a full 162, but can he get to 140, 150? I think if he does, the Angels are in much, much better shape than they ever have been in the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, you think about what a great free agent pickup that would be, right?
Exactly.
To have 140 games of Mike Trout would be spectacular. I don't know how I can answer that question. I don't know how anybody in the Angels front office can. I don't know how Mike could. I mean, let's just face it. I mean, a lot of the injuries have been fluky. He's had other injuries that, are the muscle ones you are more concerned about for sure. I just feel like with Mike, if he is able to have a season where he can have just 1 year of some good luck and some things come his way, and he's got to do a better job too with that high fastball and have a little bit more plate coverage. I think that's something that Mike would talk about. And he's working on his swing and making some adjustments to get there. Mike is not who I'm worried about. Like, I look at this Angels team, that's not my concern. Quite frankly, the concern I would have had, if you asked me in February, I would have told you I was not sure what the rotation was going to look like, and I had concerns there. I really liked what I saw from the rotation in spring, and I'm trying not to buy too much into it's spring training, like let's hold our horses a little bit. But I think who Kyle Hendricks is. I think we know who Yusei Kikuchi is. Soriano had some outings he didn't look great. He had other outings where he did, and his second half of the spring looked pretty strong. So I feel good there. I think Gahanowitz is a real deal. I think he's good. Detmers is showing progress. I mean, the stuff we know is there. We'll see if Detmers can get back to what he showed flashes of the year he threw the no-hitter. I think he could eventually get to that again. So I think there are some areas in the rotation that are a little better than I thought they were going to be. But at the same time, like, are we going to hold the Angels rotation next to the Mariners rotation? It's not that. Seattle's rotation is as maybe the best in baseball, aside from maybe the Dodgers. That'd be a good debate. But I think that we are seeing a lot of improvement with the Angels, and hopefully with the improvement, the maturity, some health, and a little bit of luck, we'll start to see things trending. That's a lot of ifs. I get that, but you can start to see some things trending.
I will say one thing to add to that too. This may be the best bullpen, Trent, that I've seen the Angels have coming into the season in a long time.
Well, the bullpen's really good. The bullpen, no one's talking about the bullpen. And how about this? So since the middle of May last year to the end of the season, the Angels had a top 5 bullpen last year, and they added Kenley Jansen to it.
Yeah.
You didn't have Ben Joyce. Remember, the Angels shut him down in early September. Why waste the bullets, right? So, you keep Ben Joyce healthy, and then the other pieces that they made. I go back to the big picture, like the Estevez trade to go get 2 legitimate pitching prospects that are like legit starters. That was a great job by Perry Manassian. The trade I did not have enough appreciation for at the time was the Luis Garcia deal. Who they got for Luis Garcia
blows my mind.
Yeah. Matthew Lugo could be a starting center fielder for you at some point. Your Zephyr John immediately is going to have an impact in the bullpen. Cavadis' depth, and then I'm forgetting Jefferson's last name, but the fourth player in that deal, the Angels are really high on. So that that was a fleece job that Perry pulled off. Those two trades were that was maybe as important of a day as the Angels have had in many years for growing the farm system. That was a huge day for Perry and the Angels, and I think we're already starting to see some of that.
Yeah. You know, Chuck and I talked about the bullpen on the last episode too. I mean, it may be the sleeper silver bullet that actually makes this a magical season. Kind of in the same way that 2002 was, where you didn't have an all-star, starting rotation. We don't need this starting rotation this year to be great. We need them to be good and consistent. Yeah. And if they're that and they turn it over to this bullpen, it could be an exciting year for this team.
How differently do you feel if Tyler Anderson's making a start and go like, man, we need 7 innings out of Tyler Anderson tonight, versus, man,
give me 5.
Give me 5. Get us to the 6th. I mean, seriously. I mean, and the same goes for Kikuchi. I know what he did in the last 10 starts for Houston. It's unrealistic to expect him. Like he was a Cy Young Award winner the way he was the last 10 starts. Right. If you have a whole season of that, but if he can be close to that, and even if he's his career average, man, if this starting rotation can pitch into the 6th inning, just get into the 6th with a really good bullpen, like you could have something here. And there are the other part that Perry did that is totally underappreciated. There are major leaguers that are going to be in AAA. That used to be something that every organization had. What have the Angels the whole time I've been here, the last 10 years, there haven't been big leaguers sitting in AAA. Guys that you could call up at any time. Like, you're going to be able to call on a Ryan Noda. You're going to be able to call a Scott Kingery. Cavadas. Yeah, there are big league players that have put up numbers at the major league level. You know, probably J.D. Davis when Moncada comes back, that you could put in the major league lineup and not break a sweat. Boy, that is something the Angels have not had, and I think that's going to be a huge deal. You never want to lose your stars, but we have to accept the reality. Baseball in 2025, guys are going to get hurt, not just with the Angels, every team in baseball. So if you have major league players to help ease that pain a little bit, that's something the Angels they haven't had before.
Sure.
Yeah. Speaking of Moncada, is he for sure thing that he's going to start the year on the IL?
No, it's not. I mean, it's a bone bruise in the right thumb. Last I checked with Wash, he wasn't throwing and he wasn't gripping a bat. So, I mean, it kind of makes me think like clock's ticking, like opening day's Thursday. So, but the one thing that Wash said, he goes, even if he can barely swing and the offense isn't there yet, like just to have his glove and his presence in the lineup, like he'll put him out there if he can do that. But I mean, I'm looking at the calendar, man. I don't know. I'm starting to think that we probably don't see Moncada on opening day, but I can't rule that out because based on what Ron Washington said, is we're not ruling that out.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Wash, this is his second season as the skipper for the team. Did you see anything different or hear anything different from Wash and his staff as it related to approaches of how they were approaching the training from a batting standpoint or from pitching standpoint or fielding or any of the drills or just their philosophy that they kind of put forth in spring to set the stage for the season?
Well, we all know that Ron Washington is a defense guy. And so the defense hasn't changed at all. On the pitching side, think about who some of some of the Angels' top arms are. And you have Soriano as a great ground ball pitcher. You have Kahanowitz as a ground ball guy. Anderson, if he can keep the ball on the ground. So you have a bunch of guys that create are not like wipeout, strikeout guys that have soft contact. What's that do? It puts pressure on the defense, and you need to be a great defensive team to handle that. The Angels, that's what they want. They want pitchers to be able to go deeper and get ground ball outs, work quickly, work efficiently, and not necessarily be wipeout, strikeout guys. I'm okay with that. And Soriano is not going to be fantasy owners are like, Jose Soriano, man, I don't want that guy. He doesn't get enough strikeouts. Okay, but he gets ground ball outs. Jack Kahanowitz, same thing. So the way the Angels are defensively with Zach Neto when he's there and they're healthy, and with Moncada and with Tim Anderson, I think that's a pretty good way the Angels view it. That part hasn't changed. Offensively, I think the Angels are going to be much more situational hitting focused. I think the Angels know that they're not the kind of team to send up their sluggers and just, hey, swing away and try to leave the ballpark. I don't think that's this team. Ron Washington is even toying with that tool, and Nolan Shonwell's been there a bunch. Like, be a contact guy. And Shonwell gets on base. We know he walks. He hit 306 in the spring. Is Nolan Shonwell going to be a 20-homer guy? Probably not. I think he'd like to be. I think Nolan would love to, as a first baseman, you'd love to have that power. I don't think at this point in his career, I don't think Nolan's that guy. But if he can be your more traditional number 2 hitter that's going to be able to move guys over and make contact and put the ball in play, I think the Angels might have something, and that's kind of how they view it on that perspective. The bigger picture thing that I noticed with the Angels this spring, Ron Washington last year was like, okay, it's about teaching, it's about learning, it's about development, growing and maturing. And okay, that was, and there's nobody better. I think Ron Washington is the perfect manager for this particular group because of how interested he is in the developmental side. And this group was so young last year, they had to develop. Ron Washington's tone is very different this year. This year, the tone is accountability. You had a year. You got a year to figure it out. You got a whole season where we're teaching you every day. If you didn't learn from last year and you can't do it this year, we're going to get someone else that can. I think that is a lot of the mentality. And now it's about holding these guys accountable. And that's everybody is expecting. It's no more like, oh, no, they're young. It's okay. No, like, you got your year. Nobody gets a year. You guys got a year. And if you can't perform, then there's going to be changes that happen. I think the whole team knows that. And I like that Ron Washington's applying that pressure. And that's the biggest difference in tone that I've noticed from last year to this year.
Nice.
That's
Well, it
awesome.
looks like Kieran Paris has definitely shown that he belongs with this spring, this season, and the work that he put in this offseason to change his stance and his load at the plate. I mean, he just looks like a different player, Trent, and he's been the kind of the talk of social media around the, in our website in terms of the fan base. What are you hearing? Do you think he makes the team?
My guess is that it's going to be Anderson at starting at second base, the major league level. Kyron Paris would be at AAA, Christian Moore at AA. That's my guess to begin the year. And we were just talking about how the Angels have major league players that are going to be in AAA. Kyron Paris this spring looks like a major leaguer to me. That is a guy that you could bring up. I think we know how much Ron Washington values defense. I love Kyron's bat, and it's so much better. But if you watch Tim Anderson and you watch Kyron Paris defensively, and the way Tim Anderson turns plays at the major league level that are routine double plays that still take Kyron Paris a minute to get to, that's the difference. Kyron's going to get there, but I think Anderson is much further ahead defensively. And I think early on, knowing how important ground ball pitchers are with this organization, knowing you don't have Zach Neto back yet, I think that is going to be probably why we see Tim Anderson. And if Anderson can hit, I mean, he was a batting champ a long time ago, but if he can hit, awesome. But I think for the defense, that's the key. The biggest thing for Kyron Paris, you can talk about change the load, and he was, where his hands are, making those adjustments. This guy believes he can hit. Hitting is so much about belief, and the confidence for Kyron Paris is at a level that I've never seen from him before. So as long as he believes he can hit, then he's going to hit. And we saw it in spring. And it went from him having some clutch hits in 8th and 9th innings against single A guys in these spring training games that are just getting their work in, to working a great at bat against the Dylan Cease and working against like real pitchers at the in the first part of these spring training games. That was the evolution of the spring for Kyron Paris, and it didn't matter who he was facing. He was working great at bats in every part of the game against every level of pitching. So that is a really encouraging sign.
That's
nice. Awesome. All right, couple more questions, Trent. Lightning round here.
Let's do it.
Angels have the number 2 pick in the upcoming draft. If the Angels were picking today, who would you choose? Would it be a pitcher or a hitter? Who would you go with? Do you draft best player available or need?
Best player available. Now, selfishly, I want Brady Ebel. I mean, I don't know. I think at 2, I don't know if Brady is going to be number 2. I love Brady. I love the Ebel family. And don't get hung up on the fact that the Angels have taken all these college guys that they've rushed. Rushed isn't even the right term necessarily. That they've accelerated to the major league level. Okay, I would not. Don't just think that's how Perry wants to do things. I think that the cupboard was bare when Perry took over on the farm. He got players that are going to help the organization to move that process along quickly. I think there's enough talent in the organization. Forget what the other publications say. There is real talent here, and the Angels know that.
Yeah.
In years past, they've almost had to take a college guy. I think now they could take a high school player, whether it's a hitter, whether it's a pitcher, college, high school. I don't know that it matters. The best player available is who the Angels are going to get. Forget need. Forget if it's a center fielder or a shortstop or a starting pitcher. Doesn't matter. They're taking the best guy. And if that means that developing him for 3 or 4 years before he sees the big leagues, then so be it. Maybe it means that guy is ready to go right away. I doubt it, but maybe he is. That's how the Angels are going to go about it this year because there is way more in the cupboard than there's been the last 3 or 4 years.
Awesome. Well, let's do some player and team predictions. So,
oh, great.
We'll focus
put me on the spot, Jeff. Come on now.
We'll focus on the team. Understand you're in a different position than Chuck and I. You are perfectly okay to say pass. If you
No, I'll answer your question.
So it's really not kind of a question. It's more of just play. So we'll start off with position players. Pick one. We'll go through. I can start. I'm bullish about the team, and mostly I'm bullish about 2025 for Mike Trout. This is a Mike Trout fanboy podcast, right? Like we're all in for the guy. I think that the injuries he's had over recent years, those are in the rear view. This is going to be a season where he's healthy. Didn't make the All-Star team for the first time in his career last year. That reverts. He's an All-Star this year. I predict he finishes the year with batting .285, 33 home runs, and 101 RBIs. I only say his RBIs are that low because I'm not sure who's going to be on base when he hits some of those out.
101, that'd be high. I mean, I think that's pretty good. I'd be thrilled to see 100 RBIs from Mike Trout. That's the big of all the numbers you said. That's the biggest number for me.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. Chuck, you want to go next?
Yeah.
No, I'll kick it over to Trent. Go ahead, Trent.
Oh,
I want to see what Trent says.
I think Adele can be a 30-30 guy. I see it.
I like it.
I think Joe Adele can hit 30 homers and steal 30 bags. Now, like I said before, he's not going to get the opportunity to do that if he hits 207 again. Like he has to hit for a higher average. But I also don't know that Joe Adele is ever going to be a high average guy, and I'm fine with that. That's one for me. If I'm going to take a flyer or someone I'm really bullish on, I think it's got to be Adele. I also think Rengifo is going to have a big year too. Contract year if he can stay healthy. I think Luis Rengifo could also be. I think he could be a 25-25 guy. I think he's got the power and the speed to do that too. So I think that there's a couple. I think Rengifo is a big year, but I think this is. We've been waiting a long time for the Joe Adele breakout. It's in there somewhere. Can he get it? I think this is the year Adele does.
Nice. Yeah, my prediction is all the Angels young guys, Ohapi, Shanuel, Neto, and Adele, each hit at least 25 home runs this season.
Whoa.
And I said Shanuel, mind you, because I know you were saying that might not be his game, but if you've seen him, he's lifting the ball a little bit more. Yeah. His exit velocity and his barrels have gone through the roof this spring. He's put on some good solid muscle weight, and I think we're going to see some power coming from him. And that'll be great because I'm all about our own guys, performing at the major league level, and I think we finally see that.
Okay, I'm going to add one more. I want to add. Can I? Are we going?
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I want to add one more. Multiple Angels pitchers are going to have double-digit wins.
Multiple.
A great segue into moving into pitcher predictions. So I will start. My prediction is actually going to be for Reed Detmers. I think this is the year that we see it all come together for him. 25 years old. He's been up and down, last year after having a really good, was a 2023 season, I think, where he threw the no-hitter and the one-hitter as well. This is the year where I think we see what this guy is. I'm predicting a 3.7 ERA. I think that he averages 13 and a half strikeouts per 9 innings, and I'm predicting 14 plus wins for him.
Oh,
Oof.
That's a big number. That's a big number.
It is a big number.
So here's the only thing.
I tell you though, if our offensive things come through, like we just said in the last segment, they're going to have run support there, right?
The only thing I'm going to say about Detmers is I was where you are right now is where I was a year ago on Detmers. And we all know 2024 was a rough year for Reed.
It was
Detmers.
rough.
So for the sake of Reed and for the sake of the Angels, I am not going to jump on the Reed Detmers bandwagon. I love him. This is out of love. This is out of love because I got burned last year.
I'm happy to drive this bandwagon by myself if I need to. But Reed,
I'm hoping by me jumping off. I hope by me jumping off, I hope is what makes your prediction happen. That's what I'm rooting for here.
Fair.
I think that I think we're going to see. We just don't see 10 wins happen very often. I mean, Tyler Anderson and Jaime Barria were the last 2 10-win seasons the Angels have had on the mound, and I think that we're going to have 2 this year. I think Soriano is going to be a double-digit win guy, and I think Gahanowitz is going to be a double-digit win guy. I'm really high on those 2. So if I were to hang my hat somewhere, I'm going that direction. I think both of those guys are going to be really important. I think Kikuchi's going to have a great year also. And I tell you what, I don't know that I was crazy high about Kyle Hendricks' pitching value when the Angels signed him. I knew how important he was going to be, especially for Detmers. I knew how important he was going to be when you talk about the emotional side of it and the support side of it. I think he's going to surprise people on the mound too. His last 5 starts were really good last year. He'll get hit around sometimes. The ERA may not be pretty because when he gets hit, it's going to be ugly. That's just who Kyle Hendricks is at this point. But when he's dotting it, he's going to give you some quality starts that you just don't see coming.
Yeah,
I like it.
Yeah, my pick is you mentioned him, Trent, is Kahanowitz. I've been high on him for a little bit now, and I think when you got a guy that can give you 7, 8 innings, 6 innings at minimum, right, and notch up the quality starts, he's my pick and leader from the rotation to have the most quality starts on the season.
Nice.
That's a good pick. That's pretty good. I like those. If all of this comes together, we're talking about October.
We may be winning the World Series.
That's right. If
all
all of this comes true, you guys better be in SoCal for October.
I will be there with a flag in the parade. I am ready. It's been a
We'll be there even before that, Jeff. Trust me. If they make the playoffs, dude, yes. I'm just renting out an Airbnb somewhere in California.
Well, I think they're wrapping up the season somewhere. I think it's in late September. They're coming out to Colorado to play the Rockies. So I'll be there all weekend, and I expect both of you. Trent will probably be there anyway, but Chuck, you should.
I'll get out there. I haven't been to Colorado in a minute. Yeah.
All right. Final thoughts. Trent, what are your final thoughts as we prepare for the Freeway Series with the Dodgers tonight and then opening up on Thursday?
Progress. We are seeing progress. And I don't want this to be misconstrued of, I don't believe in the Angels, or I don't want people to say, oh no, you work for the team and you got to say. This is my honest assessment. We are seeing this young group grow, mature, develop. Yep. How much development we see, that's what 2025 is going to tell us. But this group is growing and getting better. They need a lot of things to fall in their favor to get back to having a winning season. There's a lot that has to come together for that. But I'm pleased with what I saw this spring. I am more pleased by what I saw at the minor league level than what I saw at the major league level. And that's not to say that I'm not happy with what I'm seeing in the big leagues, because I think those vets are going to add a ton. This minor league system is so much better than I don't know that they're a top 10 system. I just know that that's not 30. That's not 29. It's a lot better than that. There are a lot of players that no one is writing about, no one is talking about, that are legitimate. Joshua Lugo, like, that guy could be a star. And there are a few of those. And there's some arms that are outstanding. So my final thought on this would be, I'm excited to see the progress in 2025. And that 25U crew eventually is going to be the core that brings a championship to the Halos. I don't know what it's going to be, but I have a lot of faith that the Ohapi Neto group is going to put up another banner for the Halos at some point.
Let's go.
All righty.
Chuck, final thoughts from you?
No, I mean, I'm just excited. I'm bummed I'm going to be in Southeast Asia for I don't know.
Weird thing to be bummed about.
Well, I mean, it's going to, whatever. I'm going to miss opening day. I've never missed opening day, so.
Just wake up at 1:30 in the morning or whatever time it's on and watch the, Yeah.
But I will be back before the home, the opening series at home.
Right.
So that'll be good. Yeah.
Well, I will for the home opening. Not that I'm in Southern California, but I actually have a business trip next week because we were talking about podcasts and we're going to do some live, watch parties with the podcast. And we're looking at both of these and, just kick off the season. Chuck's in Asia. I'm going to be in Pennsylvania next week. It's like, we'll get to it, but we're glad that we were able to get this in. Trent, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for your hospitality in Tempe. That was a lot of fun on a day that, could have been horrible because it was rained out. There was no games. We had a lot of fun, taking the tour of the stadium and then hanging out the hotel bar.
Well,
sharing drinks and stories.
Well, I appreciate you guys. And I really do appreciate both what you bring and the AngelsWin fan group. Next year, I promise we're all going to get to hang out together. I'm looking forward to that. But this group and the people that watch this podcast and the people that are about this website, that is the core, that is the heart of our Angel fan base. So any chance we get to connect, I love it. And please say hello at the ballpark whenever anybody comes by.
Absolutely.
Would love to spend some time together. So thank you for having me.
You got it. All right. Well, on behalf of Chuck Richter, I'm Jeff Stoddard. Thank you for listening to the AngelsWin podcast. Until next time, go Halos.
Thanks for listening to the AngelsWin.com podcast with Chuck Richter and Jeff Stoddard. Until next time, go Halos.